In the summer months, when it's nice like it is today, I used to open the doors and windows, let the fresh air in. And one day a couple came in and said, "Can we have breakfast?" And I said, "Yes, of course you can." I didn't have any ingredients because we weren't doing that sort of food. So I got in my car, came up into the town, bought the ingredients and served them breakfast. And we've been doing it ever since. I love food, as you can see.
Serving breakfast, it's sort of going back to the tradition of the old inns, isn't it?
That's
and the
right.
hostelries.
I mean, it's not that long, really. You look in the history books when the roads all over the country were terrible. They've still got the ruts of the stagecoaches. Food in country inns was very, very important in those days. Breakfast was important. They never fit. We mustn't eat all these calories. I say that a gentleman or a lady can fill herself up with a good breakfast like that and last all day. Working, burning the calories off, so what's the difference?
Or not be able to move all day.
I said working.
Well, on the premise of a little of what you fancy does you good, I'm going to finish this.
Crediton has a reputation for being congested nowadays, but you should have tried finding your way along the High Street during the annual cattle fair. This is just one of the memories contained in Mr. Lavitt's book. Albert Lavitt has lived in Crediton all his 69 years and amassed a collection of 350 photographs of characters and events from years gone by, the pick of which make up the book Albert Lavitt's Crediton Collection.
I've met people in Crediton who lived there all their lives, and I said, "Well, have you got any photographs of Crediton?" And they said, "Yes," you know. I said, and I've taken 2 or 3 and have the reissued again and taken them back to them. So that's how I got the collection.
What about this lovely one with all the cattle in the main street? What's going on there?
Well, that was the 3rd Saturday in April every year. It went on until 1957. That was the last street scene. The farmers would bring in, say, 20 or 30 head of cattle, and it would be sold in groups down through, and as each group came down to the auctioneer, they would be driven away again. And then after dinner, the stallion parade used to take place. The farmers would then select their stallion, whichever they wanted, and then the chap would then, say, another fortnight or whatever it was, used to walk the district round with the stallion to each farm, which the farmer was selected, which stallion they selected.
What about some of the parades we see in here?
Well, that was every month there was a church parade. There's some description. The Methodists or the Church of England or whatever parade.
And there's a rather grand funeral in the book as well, isn't there?
Well, that is General Buller, and he got the VC during Zulu War, and he lives. The estate is just outside of Crediton, on the outside of Crediton. And he was actually the Bullers of the Lords of the Manor of the town.
And a little later on in time, there's celebrations of Peace Day, the First World War.
Yeah. Well, in one of the photographs, is all the girls. They're all in white, and about 1919 it was. And the peace celebrations went on through the town. Yeah.
Quite a lot of pictures of people enjoying themselves. There's a lovely one here with a street party.
Oh, that's in Park Street. The old chappie in the centre there was the old rag and bone man called Yard. And the little baby there, the lady holding the baby, is Harold Setter. He's just died a few months ago, and he was 80. So to give you an idea of the age of the photograph. Mm-hmm.
Do you prefer Crediton as it is now, or as it was in those days?
Well, I mean, Crediton before the war used to be Good Morning Dick, George, Harry, but now you don't hardly. Very few people you know, because they're old, and these new estates that take place, they're all new people coming into the town. So There's not the people you know like you used to.
You can make all the jokes you like about wings and prayers. The Bishop of Crediton, in pursuit of his latest hobby, has heard them all before. Fortunately, he's blessed with a cheery sense of humour to cope with the things people say.
Well, you know, you're going to be nearer to heaven up there. I mean, I don't have that kind of belief, really. I reckon God's anywhere, everywhere. And I think there's a sort of certain sense in adventure, in Christian living, actually. You ought not to be frightened of things if you can manage it. So why not try and learn to fly?
Under instructor Alan Stevenson, the Bishop is a pupil at Exeter Flying Club. As yet, it's early days. He's less than a quarter of the way through the course. The Bishop has wanted to fly since he was a young officer in the army, but a busy life has prevented him from learning. Even now he has to squeeze in lessons when his schedule permits. Today's was the 8th.
Well, I was learning about climbing and descending with the engine running full power to go up and turning it off pretty well and gliding down. And you have to adjust the ailerons and things to keep it straight in both ways. And turning around and flying straight. It's about as far as I've got so far. I learn slowly. Of course, I can't come to the lessons on Sunday mornings like other people can, so they have to put up with me as rather a slow pupil. You see, I see churches that I've been in last night and preaching at, and I see them from on top, in Crediton, and up in Barnstable, and so on, down in Sidmouth, Dawlish, Exeter Cathedral, of course, Crediton itself. Well, I've promised the children for my 60th birthday I'll fly them to St Malo, but they said, no, Daddy, we'll come on the ferry and meet you there, so we'll have to wait and see.
They of little faith have until next summer to change their minds. That's when the Bishop hopes to have his wings. In the meantime, as his plane touches down under Alan Stevenson's guidance, here endeth today's lesson.
Devon countryside in early spring, and few things could be more tranquil. The birds... Wait a minute! Well, they say the Lord moves in a mysterious way, but was it Shakespeare who said there's more things dreamt of in heaven and earth? Let's follow him and find out what's happening. Hey, where is he? He's down here. Say, excuse me. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry to stop you. That's all right. What's a rector like you doing out on a track like this?
Well, I was hoping that this SINCLAIR 3C5 might be the answer to one of my problems, getting around what I'm told is the second largest parish outside Dartmoor and Exmoor.
Why not get yourself a car?
So I'm partially sighted, being an albino, white hair, and can't drive, and this is below the licensing requirements, no license required. So I had hoped it was going to be one of a help to me.
You say you had hoped, but hasn't it come up to scratch?
Well, if you see me pedaling up hills, you will
say,
see
it's a
what...
very hilly sort of area,
yes,
isn't it?
Coming down is marvellous, terrific. I can get a good speed going, but going up hills, it requires a fair amount of work from the legs, as well as from the battery.
You're pretty low on the road down here. Do you feel safe in it?
Well, I think I would
corners.
feel rather differently if I was going across from Euston to Waterloo. But here, I don't think there's any problem.
But has it been the answer to your prayers?
Only partially.
Any modifications planned?
Yes, well, planned. If I could persuade C5 to put me in an engine twice as powerful, I think I'd be a very good ad for them.
Well, I'm sure you've got plenty of other parishioners to go off and see, so we won't detain you.
Right, okay.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
I'm glad I managed to stop you.
Right, see you later.
Bye.
Devon cream and Devon butter are pretty common to all of us, yet believe it or not, they're playing a vital role in Britain's export campaign, though not in their raw state. They're used by a Crediton firm as the key ingredients in the output of sweets. The firm has been in existence at Crediton since 1931, although it succeeded a local chocolate business dating back over 100 years. It's been at the present site for 5 years and occupies some 15,000 square feet of highly mechanized factory space, turning out more than 40 different lines of confectionery. About 25% of the annual output of 600 tons finds its way into the mouths of the men, women and children of Canada and the northern half of the United States. Realizing that it couldn't compete with larger firms in the hard-hitting competitive world of exports, the firm decided to base its overseas sales on the specialization of Devonshire butterscotch, Devonshire cream toffee and Devonshire cream fudge. As one of the directors told me, we have a ready-made sales appeal with the American vision of green fields of Devon, lush grass and sleek cows heavy with rich milk. The need to export has led to big changes on the factory floor, with a rapid switch to automation. By using the latest producing and packaging methods, the firm has cut its actual labour force by 2/3, but pushed production up substantially. The staff are, by the way, encouraged to eat as many sweets as they fancy, but usually after a week of excessive chewing, they're sick of the sight of them. There are 2 production lines working side by side: the boiled sweets and the dairy products. The boiled lines begin their life as a mixture of sugar, glucose and water, boiled to a temperature of 320 degrees. On cooling tables, the colouring and flavouring is added, after which a long rope of confectionery passes its way through cutters and shapers and onto a wrapping machine at the rate of 2 finished sweets every second. The dairy lines, toffee, butterscotch and fudge, are boiled in copper bowls to preserve the richness of the flavour, and are either placed on huge trays to cool as fudge, or else pass through a cutting machine to emerge as toffees at the rate of 10 sweets every second. For the export markets, with the high American demand for hygiene and immaculate packaging, there's a combination of mechanical skill and the human eye. Despite a soaring rate of production, the firm Bristow's of Crediton has remained a family business for 3 generations, and now carries the name of a tiny Devon town into the drugstores and supermarkets of the biggest cities of the United States and Canada.
You probably didn't realise I could play the guitar, though after that rendering you probably realise I don't play very well. But there is a gentleman here in Crediton who not only plays guitars well, but makes them, like this one, absolutely beautifully. Let me just pop that down there. Careful not to knock it. Andy, tell us how you actually started making guitars.
It started with an interest in guitar playing, and then I made a guitar at home for myself. I played quite a bit and went busking, ended up in a piano tuning course at the College of Furniture and working part-time with a guitar maker, and then I went on my own.
Now, there are quite a number of processes in making a guitar, isn't there? Can you give us some idea what you do here?
Well, it's simply a question of starting off with the basic raw material. The timber has to be selected for certain properties, for strength and tone production, and also visually, of course. This, for instance, ends up, well, two pieces of that will end up in the mould like that.
How about the rich and famous, the customers who come to you for these beautifully handcrafted instruments?
The rich and famous probably constitute about 1% of our custom. Frankly, our most interesting customers are really what I would call a more serious musician, whether they're amateur or professional.
Of course, you're a two-man operation here, and your brother Hugh is involved in making electric guitars, isn't he?
We decided in the first place that it would be better if we specialised, one doing the electrics and one doing the acoustics, so that we could each devote our time to make the finest possible of each particular type of instrument.
Hugh, to a layman like myself, making an electric guitar is almost the same as making an acoustic guitar.
Yes, the fundamental principle is the same, in that we're trying to produce a tone from a vibrating string. Although, obviously, there's very different physical differences between an acoustic and an electric guitar.
So what you're saying is that different woods will actually give you different sounds?
Exactly that. I mean, the two sort of classical or most used types of wood are, for the neck of the guitar, are Brazilian mahogany, which is this section here. This gives the instrument a relatively mellow sound, or maple. This piece is Canadian maple. In fact, this guitar's going back to America. This is a much harder, you can hear the difference, the ring's a much harder, yes, tighter sound.
Now, we've talked about the actual wood part of the guitar. What about the finishes? There seems to be all kinds of different weird and wonderful finishes.
Oh yes, yeah, we get asked for all sorts of strange things. We have our own spray facilities here. The process is fairly complicated. There are about 5 or 6 coats of 2-pack polyurethane put on as the base coat. Between each coat there's sanded flaticles. Then if there's a colour coat to go between, say it's a green, the green will go on then in the sunburst, sprayed on obviously. And then on top of that, however many coats of cellulose you think it needs, probably about 8 or 10 or something like that.
Although the next Olympic Games, perhaps mercifully, is still more than 3.5 years away, at least one West Country firm is already concentrating on the vital task of winning a gold medal, but not, alas, necessarily from Britain, because this firm is in Crediton. It's sheltered beside a garage run by Bill Snell and his son Tony. And the great interest that this particular firm has in the next Olympic Games is the possibility of providing a canoe that could win a gold medal for one of the international teams. Now, Tony Snell, it seems an incredible thing to talk about canoes in Crediton, because you could hardly be further from the sea and the rivers. Why Crediton?
Well, I think this is just the fact that we happen to live here, and it's very convenient for water, being very close to the River Exe, River Dart, and also close to the South Devon coast and the North Devon coast, which is an excellent surfing area particularly.
This small firm of yours has already built up a great international name for itself. How did it happen?
Purely by hard work, I think, and being in the right place at the right time, really, with the right stuff for them to use. It was quite a new concept to have glass fibre boats, for instance, in top-class racing, as they're all used to wooden, moulded, and very expensive boats. In this case, we've managed to bring prices down and strength up.
When I talk about canoes, I'm thinking of things with Eskimos sitting in them and Red Indians, but how many types of canoes do you turn out?
I think we do about 17 different models now. Basically, there are 3 different types, ranging from the general purpose canoe for the family and a child.
Now, this is the sort of thing that I would potter around a lake or a river.
Yes, indeed, yes. Very stable, reasonably fast. The second class would probably come into a white water class, which is paddling on really rough water and really exciting stuff, which we call slalom, and whitewater racing, this sort of thing.
This, you hope, is getting around rocks, obstacles,
we hope, yes.
Right through wherever
yes.
there are rapids, turmoil.
That's right, yes, yes.
And your third type?
Is out-and-out racing, to get from A to B at the fastest possible time. This is our biggest field, and we've had most success in this.
Now, you were saying that you've specialised in glass fibre plastic. How do you actually build these canoes? What's the process?
Well, first of all, you start off from the drawing board stage. You build a model of your particular boat. From this, you eventually take moulds, and from then you mould, laminate inside your moulds to give you a shell, a racing shell. And you do all the fittings separately and accumulate the whole lot.
So really, it's not one skin, it's a whole collection of layers of skin, one on top of the other.
Yes, they vary according to which weight you want and what strength boat you require, which is governed again whether you're going to use it in white water, rocky conditions, or just as a sprint racing boat on flat, smooth water.
Now, it seems that some canoeists, perhaps for excitement, go around turning them upside down and all sorts of things.
Yes, indeed, yes. Well, this comes more in the field of slalom and white water work. This isn't a gimmick, by the way. This is a real safety factor. One has to be able to roll, as they call it, purely to get out of trouble.
What about racing? What's the point to watch for in a racing canoeist?
His general paddling style, I think, is the main thing, whereby he transports all his physical effort through his body into the boat itself to move it as fast as possible.
Looking ahead to 1972, what chance of your firm in Crediton picking up a gold medal for somebody?
Oh, this is difficult. You see, at the moment we're concentrating mainly on LD work, which is long distance canoeing. Anything from 15 miles up to 35 miles, something like this. And at present the Olympics do not cater for LD paddling, but we're hoping the next one will. So we should go into this.
Is perhaps a reasonable dream.
I hope so.
Thank you very much, Tony Snell.
Most boat designers are brought up in an atmosphere of hemp, sailcloth and varnish, and the kind of boats they produce are the traditional sort of designs that we're all accustomed to. But take a young man who was brought up to be a sailor, then trained to be an aircraft designer, and let him apply that knowledge to designing boats, and you come up with something pretty extraordinary. That's exactly what happened to John Walker, who worked on the highly successful Beagle light aircraft, then went into the car industry and designed a glass-top car for the Duke of Edinburgh. He's now applied that aerodynamic knowledge to building sailing craft. John, what is the principle behind this particular boat?
Well, basically, I felt that we had to build a boat that did a bit more for the helmsman, that instead of requiring constant skilled attention, like a very early motor car, early airplane, was in 1968 something that had some thinking process of its own.
Now you have no canvas, no conventional sails. You have these 5, you call them sailplanes instead.
Yes.
How do they work?
They are indeed sails in that the wind arrives from this direction, finds that the sail is at an angle to it, and the wind is deflected. There is more to it than this. You develop a lower pressure on this side than on that side, and so on. But basically, it's perfectly simply a question of putting up a contraption which will take a given lump of wind and extract as much energy from it as you efficiently can.
Well, John, she seems to go away all right.
Yes, I find her very, very lovely. I'm obviously very biased, but certainly I don't think we're detracting from the beauty of sailing.
How much would one of those cost?
Well, our first day boat, which will be for 4 people with a wrap-round windscreen and perhaps a soft top, this will cost a bit under £1,000.
A little bit more expensive than the normal run of day boats.
Well, yes, of course. There's some pretty complicated engineering involved.
And when do you expect to go into production?
Certainly, I think, from the response that we have had during the course of this year.
John Walker, very good luck with your boat.
Thank you.